shall now try to get on tape just what the village and its inhabitants were like in the 1930s, looking through my eyes as a boy of 10. If we start at the top of the village, there was the Whip public house. This was kept by a Mr. Harris at the time. I used to be taken up there with my sister by my father, and we used to go in the pub and have lemonade. And at the Whip, that was the first television I ever saw. It was a little tiny 9-inch screen. I can remember the programme was called Jack of Clubs. It was about a gambler who travelled round the country, big trunk full of decks of cards. Behind the Whip public house stood the windmill, and up in the mill house lived a Mr. Millwood and his wife. I can't remember whether they had any children or not. Mr. Millwood was a rather big man, and he used to sing in the choir at church, and he used to sit behind the choir boys, and if we committed any misdemeanour or quite a tap on your head, you would then know that you've got to keep quiet. I don't know why Mr. Millwood did this, but none of the other choirmen did at all. I think also in the 30s the windmill was let to someone, and I believe it was painted a cream colour then, and I think these people used to come down from London to spend weekends. I don't know what it was like inside when they lived there, but I had been in it at times. My mother and her sister, my aunt Anne, used to have to take the corn up there to be ground. Grandfather was an agricultural contractor, and he used to take on to cut the cornfields because he was the contracting man. They had the first gleaning, so they would go out there and pick all the ears of corn up, get all the corn out, and then take it up to the windmill to be ground into flour, so as would be my grandmother could use it to make bread and things like that. Coming down the road a little bit, there are 1 or 2 fields before you get to Woodbine Farm. Sometime in the 30s they used to have religious revivals, you know, the hot gospelers used to come and set up a marquee, and they all went there and praised the Lord. And as boys we didn't have much to do, so we used to sort of go out of interest. But there was often one there, and there was a storm one night. A man was holding the pole that was holding the marquee up, and the lightning struck it. I don't know whether he survived, but he was badly hurt. Woodbine Farm was kept by George and Emma Hall, brother and sister. Emma was our Sunday school teacher, or my Sunday school teacher, and she was only a short woman, and all through the winter she dressed in black hat, umbrella, hook and eye boots, long skirts, alpaca coat. When summer came she switched everything to white boots, white gloves. She used to make her own butter, and she was so small she had to stand on a big high box to turn this huge churn hour after hour to make these pats of butter. He had a nephew who lived with them, Harry, and eventually he took over the farm when the old people died. Just down below them was a pair of semis. In the first one lived Grandma Lacey. Grandma Lacey was the post lady. I can never remember her husband, but Grandma was a large, portly woman, and she used to have to pick the little one at Lacey Green, and then she would put them in a big bag and carry them all the way down the village. And then once she got to the bottom, she'd start delivering in the outlying farm. She used to walk down to Small Dean, back up through the woods to Holly Bush Farm, almost across the Speen, down to Highwood Bottom, and then home. I can picture her now. I stood at the door when it was raining. She got a huge waterproof cape on. She was bulky anyway, but she looked more than bulky then. I suppose she must have walked 10 or 12 miles a day easily. And they think they're hard done by today if they can't drive up to the door. Next door to her was her son and his wife, and they had 2 children, Donald and Connie. Donald was a friend of mine. We played a great deal together. He was just a little bit younger than me. Next house down was Rose Villa. This was a different one. It was detached, it stood on its own, rather a large place, big piece of ground at the back of it, and she had 20 or 30 small dogs, little Pomeranian type of thing, yap. And as all us boys used to have to go up in the morning to collect the milk from Woodbine Farm, they were always out and they would come running after us, barking. We used to run away from them, or keep well on the other side of the road, and we'd go up a little bit to Woodbine Farm and collect her milk, and then have to do the return journey, run by them and sometimes spilling the milk. This place is the only place I've ever seen where the bailiffs come in. I didn't know who owned it. Obviously he'd had enough one way and another. So the bailiffs came in and they put all her furniture, her dogs and her, out on the road, which they could do those days. And if it hadn't have been for the kindness of the man at Woodbine Farm, who gave her a corner of the barn to put her stuff in and sleep in for a night or two, I don't know where she would have went. Then there was another piece of field, and then there was a rough track to a rather large house, more or less behind the bakery. I don't know who lived there. I only know his name was Mr. Masters, but I don't really know any more about him than that. And we come back down the track to the bakehouse. This was kept by Hezekiah James and his son Sidney and Charlie Clayton, who used to help. Sidney was married, he had 2 children, Molly, and Molly had a sister, I can't remember her name. It was very nice to go in the bakery because it was tacked onto the side of the house, and you went in there. There was a coal and wood thrown up in one corner, and Charlie or Sidney kneading the dough over in the other corner. Not hygienic by today's standards, but no one came amiss by it. Molly and I got collared into fancy dress from Jubilee, which was 1935. Our parents decided it would be good if we went as bride and groom. Neither of us wanted to be it, but nonetheless we had to be. It was alright for Molly's dress, they made that, but mine had one of Mrs. Jane, Molly's mum's dresses, but mine had to be cut-me-downs of some old man's suit, and they got all that ready, a long frock coat, but they were stumped when it came to the top hat. However, up the road a bit was the local builder, who was also the local undertaker, and they used to have top hats, so they went up and borrowed the smallest one they'd got, which was still too big for me anyway, but they packed it with newspaper so it was perched on the top of my head. Anyway, the outcome wasn't too bad. We won first prize, Molly and I, which was 3 shillings, which was quite a lot of money in those days, so that was 1 and 6pence each. I still bump into Molly occasionally. She lives down in Roberts Road, High Wycombe, and she hasn't changed a bit. Going down the road, a couple more fields. These belong to the bakery, and then there was another one belonging to Mr. Harvey down at Bluesley Row. It was always called Chewer's Field, I never knew why. And we came to another house, Bottle Cottage. That was where Mr. and Mrs. Lewis lived. Mr. Lewis was the local paperman. He had a small cob and he used to drive to Saunderton Station every morning, 7 days a week, pick up his papers and start delivering them up Bluesley Road, round along the Pink Road, Redland End, Hamden, Speen and back to Lacey Green, usually by about 1 o'clock. That was his day. He had a son and a daughter, Rosalind and Freddie. Freddie fell ill. He had pneumonia, which was a terrible thing then and not too pleasant now. But in those days you sort of could do these things, and Mr. Lewis spread straw all over the street for about 100 yards either side of the house, so as there would be no noise for his boy. And no one took any notice of it. It was all an accepted practice. Joined on to Bottle Cottage was Plum Tree Cottages 1 and 2. In number 1 lived a Mrs. Hickman. I don't really know much about her at all. In number 2 lived a Mrs. Adams and her son Tony. Alice. Oh, a penny for boys and 2pence for men. Winter time you had it cut in the house. Summertime if it was fine under the apple tree. If it was raining in an old shed. Tony was also a church warden. And it so happened that we lived next door in the church. I didn't mind going with him because Tony had always got peppermints with him. And we used to sit in the big snuff. He'd draw his little snuff box out of his pocket and have a good sniff up there. Tony was gardener at Mrs. Beddington's, which was a place at Lily Bottom, back down behind the Pink and Lily. While we're talking about Plum Tree Cottages, I think I'll describe it as it was when we moved down the road. I think when I was about 10 or 11 maybe. We moved down from just beside the chapel, so there was no cartage. We just took everything down on the wheelbarrow, Mother and I mainly. When we got down there, it was quite a bit different from our place because it got 3 bedrooms, whereas our old place only got 1. And what is more, it got 3 electric lights in there, brass switches. Not in my bedroom, I still had to have candles in mine, and we had candles in the scullery. There was no water indoors, and when the mains was put on, they put the tap out in the garden. You never had it inside. The usual place was a long pipe round the front of number 2, then up the garden a good bit. Ours was stuck in the corner of the woodhouse, and only the hardy or desperate went there at night. Later on, Dad had an insurance out, £42, a fortune. So he had a good shed built, also a nice copper for Mum to do the washing with. Then Dad had an inspiration. He decided that we could have a bath each, if Mapple with water, after she'd finished washing, and get it all warm for us. Remember, all water had got to be carried around from the front of the house up into the shed, a bucket full in each hand. Then winter or summer, once a week, we took it in turns to have a bath, making sure you took a bucket up with you to replenish it. You took the hot water out with a big jug, put it in the bath, that's a bungalow bath type of thing, then put the cold back into the copper so as to heat up for the next one. And then the big moment, off with all your clothes, stand in the bath very quickly at winter time especially, rub down with a towel, put clean clothes on, taken up by the bather, empty the water out of the bath onto the garden, make it right for the next one, stoke the copper up and then hurry indoors. As one can appreciate, it was very, very draughty. Prior to this we had to boil up the saucepans on the fire, and we all bathed in the same water. My sister and I sometimes had to stand in the kitchen while Dad washed. I think water went indoors when main drainage come on sometimes in the 60s.